Welcome to the Psychedelic Scene podcast. My guest today is Adam Butler, author of Butler's DMT Field Guide, a brief history, step-by-step recipes, and personal experiences from a DMT saturated consciousness. It's quite a title. What's up, Adam?
How are you? It's a beautiful day. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, man. So I had to turn the gain down a little bit. I get excited when I talk. Hey, you know what, man? Before we get started, and I know a lot of people listening, are familiar, but for everyone that is unfamiliar with DMT, just in general, let's give them some quick knowledge on that. Uh, can you explain what DMT is? What are the origins of its discovery, and what are some of the applications of DMT? Just a quick little overview.
Sure. So DMT stands for dimethyltryptamine. It's a plant-derived psychedelic that my understanding is really one of the most powerful psychedelics that we've come across. It's different from shrooms or LSD or ketamine because it's really short-lived when you smoke it. So the ability to go really deep into a psychedelic space, have the therapeutic value, and then pull yourself back out, I think has its application in mental health, suicide prevention, which is ultimately what led me to it. But it's something that needs to be held with reverence, and it's not something. And maybe now would be the perfect time. Disclaimer: do your own research. I would say psychedelics are not for everybody. DMT is certainly not for everybody. But these molecules typically call to you, and that's kind of been a common thread talking to other people is that if you're getting kind of the intuitive calling to look into psychedelics, each one kind of finds you. And if DMT starts calling you, I would say do your research and not necessarily end with my book, but my book's kind of a quick, easy field guide to then lead into further research. So there's people that have dedicated their lives to studying DMT, and they break it down chemically, what it does physiologically in your body. Um, but for me, the easy thing is it saved my life. It turned me completely around. Um,
Yeah, and also just a quick shout out to your book. Not to like shamelessly plug the book, but when you said quick easy read, that is exactly, it's like like your typical field guide to anything else. It's like about 100 pages, and also you can just listen, you have an audiobook version. So for someone like me, that's my favorite way to consume a lot of like nonfiction is just walk my dog and listen to a book. But
Well, I've gotten some pushback as well as the genuine compliments that the conciseness is a positive thing. I didn't want to write some huge novel because, to be perfectly honest with you, there's other people that have all the references. Like I said, I've been studying it for way longer than I. That's not what I wanted to write. I really wanted this to kind of be a quick, easy overview, truly a field guide that you could look through.
yeah,
Get a basic rundown on what it is, also recipes. And these aren't my novel recipes that I concocted in my chemistry lab. They're available online and pretty easy and straightforward. Um, and then some kind of just do's and don'ts, and then really how I applied it to my life from being an overweight, alcoholic, narcissistic dick who lost absolutely everything, and rightfully so, to being somebody now that's content, happy, and certainly in a rebuilding path of my life, but uh, completely different perspective on life. And once again, similar to what other people's experiences with psychedelics are as well. And
yeah.
that's ultimately why I'm sharing my raw and horrible stories is because hopefully it'll help other people not have to go through that shit.
Yeah. I mean, like just off the top of I'm gonna think of a probably pretty silly analogy off the top of my head, but I am gonna just think of a field guide. Like, say you want to be a wildlife photographer, you get a field guide to like, how do you get out there? How do you, find whatever species you're interested in photographing, all that kind of stuff. You don't a good 100-page book that's really concise, well written is gonna give you the opportunity to like really get out and get started doing what you want to do. Whereas alternatively, you don't need to read a 700-page biology book on like mountain lions. I guess, does that make sense? Is that even kind of what you were getting at?
Yeah, I think because it's such a subjective experience and people go into psychedelics for an assortment of reasons. So what worked for me isn't would work for somebody else, or at different stages of your lives. So I wouldn't lean on what any one person says. You certainly take their advice for what it's worth, but you really have to do your own research. And you know, just with my personal experience, I had access to DMT through a friend, and I knew it was there, and I had been experimenting with mushrooms for a while, but I didn't touch it for 3 or 4 months, and that's when I did my research. I did, the basic surface podcasts like Joe Rogan and all of that, and then you start getting into the Rick Strassmans, who did these, 5+ year studies. There's a lot of great PhD students, guys with PhDs, women with PhDs, that are really, really focused on this molecule. I consumed as much of that information as I possibly could, and then from there I made the decision. And I think that's huge. Setting the motivation, the intention. Why are you doing it? It's definitely not something that I would consider, a party drug, or just something somebody hands you and you say, "Oh, I'm just gonna do it."
Yeah.
You really have to make sure why are you entering that space?
Yeah.
And it
You want to
doesn't
do
have to be
some,
all doom and gloom and dark and, oh shit, I gotta save my life. I mean, it
yeah.
can be for love making, to go to a party, to go to a concert, but once again, with the proper respect that it needs to get to that state.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree entirely. And I mean, look, I think that bringing up mushrooms is a great example because mushrooms, I mean, they can be scary. Any uh, hallucinogen can be scary, but mushrooms are kind of one of the least scary, and they're very common. Most people have done them, and it's kind of thing where it's like you've committed to a certain number of hours, and then it's going to go away. And DMT has this ominous, like hear these stories. It's like, oh, DMT, like you're going to go to another universe, and you might not come back because there's all those that lore of it being this uh, horrifically powerful experience.
So I did 3.6 grams of shrooms last night. Just full disclosure. I typically like to, before I go on a podcast, kind of see what energy's out there, and what kind of vibe I'm going to bring to the podcast. And I was kind of laughing because I was comparing the two. So I normally do DMT, and I've done it hundreds of times now. And I don't say that, in a bragging way. I use it as a therapeutic part of my life. Um, but the analogy I came up with was, shrooms is a nice, easy. So you said 3, 4, 5 hours. It's like going through an amusement park, and you're almost waiting in line for each ride. You're experiencing each one. You're hearing what the ride's going to be. You can choose if you don't want to go or not. It's going to be crazy and exciting and wonderful, but you kind of have time to process it. DMT is like being shot through that amusement park in 10 seconds, and yet you've done every ride, every possible thing, consumed every information, and it's just like this blast of information where you're like, holy fuck.
Yeah,
Um, but the beauty of that is you don't need to set aside an entire day. You don't need to plan a weekend. Uh, you could, and not that everything needs to be rushed, and that you need to have a quick summary of everything. There is a place for that long meditative shroom session.
yeah,
But for most people right now in today's society, everybody's so busy where, it's tough to take an hour to go to the gym, or tough to take an hour to do yoga, or take a walk in the woods, let alone take 3, 4, 5, 10 hours to trip. Where,
yeah.
I typically like to do it at night when I'm winding down, going to bed. I'll set the mood. Once again, I'll do my prayers, my meditation, and yeah, you fucking blast off. But if
S-
you're doing it for a reason, comfortably in your own space, it can be a powerful tool.
Just for like clarification, and I know that we're trying to say that it's not about rushing things, but how much real time, like time here in the physical world that we are currently inhabiting, how much of your actual time are you gone?
Typically 6, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. I mean,
Wow.
I'd say 10 minutes tops. And it really is. Um, so part of my story, and we can kind of get into how I think psychedelics can help people with addiction issues. I was a major alcoholic for 20 years of my adult life. So I'm 3.5 years sober now. And that was a huge part of why I started getting into this. And fuck, what was I gonna go with this? With fuck, sorry, what we were just talking about?
Well, we were talking about just the fact that
Oh, fuck.
DMT is such a short amount of time. I mean, like not in your from what I understand, in your perception, it might seem like quite a long time, but And when you're, in real life, you've dedicated 10 minutes to a DMT trip.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so you really go in, and what are you trying to get out of it? And I think that you're gonna get a blast of, like, I've come out and said, what I took from 7 years of college, I came out in 7 minutes of learning in a DMT session, and it really is that powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know what I was gonna say about the session and the strength, and comparing it to alcohol. I'm sorry, that's where I went. Where the difference of having one shot of alcohol as opposed to slamming the entire bottle, you're going to get a completely different experience. And same thing with DMT. If you take one or two hits, I mean, you're certainly going to feel it, and you're going to be buzzing with that vibration. But that's way different from taking 4, 5, 6, 7, if you can push it, 8, 9 hits. And I think that's really where the intention is. So are you doing it to have a calm, easy Sunday night where you're with your partner and you're just kind of relaxing, watching a movie, and before you're going to do a couple sessions, or you, no, I need to go in and reconstruct everything in my life and really go into it with that intention. So sorry for the brain fart there, but that was really it. Where um, because it's so powerful and strong, you can kind of dial it in and tune it for what you want. So uh, that blast can be extremely powerful from the first hit, but then you keep pushing it to whatever level. And that's kind of where that fun space is now, is what is that DMT space? What are these entities that myself and other people are interacting with? Are they real? Are they not real? Are they products of my consciousness? Is there some collective consciousness that I'm tapping into? And these are all kind of the things now that I'm trying to explore.
Yeah.
And I don't have any answers. Each time
Yeah.
it's fucking crazy.
um Hey, we touched on this a couple times here, just a little bit about your past life, like your life before now, before you are who you are now. Can you just kind of talk about like what was your life like leading up to the first time you ever tried DMT, and then maybe also just like how has your life changed? Like how have you been altered as a person?
So I try to be brief when I talked about this in my book too, because I don't want to embellish my past or act like my story is somehow novel or new or special. But there are some certain points in my past that I think are really relevant. Uh, I was raised with the silver spoon in my mouth. I had absolutely every advantage growing up. I truly was, the rich white kid from New England. Great parents, awesome grandparents. Uh, I had I was a real estate investor for a while. I had multiple properties. I was, working, making a shit ton of money. Everything on paper was good, except like I mentioned before, I was basically drowning myself in alcohol. I was running from all of my issues. I was 40 plus pounds overweight. I was a narcissistic dick to the woman I was with. Um, Now, granted, it was a $500,000 three-story Victorian by the water that we just renovated. Absolutely beautiful. Multiple vacations every year. But I was an asshole to
Yeah.
myself and not truthful to myself, and that conveyed to everybody that was around me. So long story short, I got a knock on the door from a constable saying I have a restraining order against me. I had to get kicked out of my house. She basically accused me of making it, an unsafe environment for her to live in. And I've never put my hands on anybody, man or woman, but I can see in hindsight now that, man, I've just made such a horribly toxic, awful place for her and her daughters to be. So I left, I got kicked out. I had to leave, and that was right when COVID started. So instead of having a short process where we just went to court and, ultimately I agreed to sell out and she was going to buy the other half of the house out. But that process lasted for like 2 years because of COVID. So that was just this long, strung out, horrible thing where, so lost my relationship. Then I went on a downward spiral where I quit my high paying job because I was just done with people. Moved to the Cape and found a better job, better lifestyle. Everything was awesome. I was still kind of heartbroken from the women, but then I had a guy fuck me over for $900. And I talk about this because this is where being on the verge of snapping, and I think so many people are on the verge of snapping. In the grand scheme of things, that was nothing in my life. $900 was nothing, but it was a matter of principle. And I threatened to kill him, and I meant it. And he was another grown ass man. He looked at me and he was like, "Fuck you, I'll kill you too." And it got really serious really quick. That was on a Sunday. That Monday morning, I woke up and I was like, I know I didn't have a job anymore now, so that was the co-owner of the company. So now my latest job was now gone.
Yeah.
So I decided I'm going to drive to California and hug a redwood tree. That was my only plan. I had 70, $80,000 in the bank. I knew I didn't have to worry about money, and I just took off. Um, I basically spent like a year and a half on the road. I went to 40 plus states, just traveled everywhere, went to a bunch of national parks, um, and kind of along the whole time just doing psychedelics and exploring DMT and trying to find myself. I really went on a spiritual kind of retreat. Um, but that snap, that holy fuck, like now I've lost everything in my life twice because of my internal conflict. And I always thought maybe it was the woman issue or this guy issue. And ultimately, it took me to realize it was my own issues. I was spending all of my mental time and energy and physical energy banging my head against the wall. So I started exploring with shrooms. I spent several months, and I had done them when I was 20 years old in college, like most people. I'm coming up on my 44th birthday, so I had a good 20-year hiatus where I wasn't into psychedelics at all. But then I started hearing all the research about how it could help people with mental health issues, and I really was, I was mentally a very sick person. Um, so I started being very comfortable in the shroom space, and then pushing it further, doing 6, 7, 8 gram sessions, and I had really good experiences coming out of it and having some clarity of where my issues were. But I knew that it didn't quite shake free what I needed to, and then that's what led me through to the path of DMT. And then that first day, and I also think this is important to the story because my experience isn't going to be like most. That first day, I mentioned in the book, I took about 50 hits. Now, most people, that's more than they'd ever taken a fucking lifetime, and probably more than anybody should ever take in a lifetime. But I did about 7, 8 sessions, and each session was 6, 7, 8 hits. And my intention was really, if I didn't leave there with some sort of answer, I was going to walk off into the woods and not come back. And that was a very heavy thing for me to contemplate. And my friend that was with me, who's a brother of mine, he also knew the weight of what was going on. So first hit I took instantly was a sense of familiarity, the taste, the smell, the sensation. There was this nasal passage kind of cavity feeling that was very familiar. Now all of the sights and sounds and everything was spinning and going crazy, but it felt very comfortable. So I took a couple more hits and realized, all right, this is a very unique sensational space, but I didn't have any revelations or anything like that. Pushed it. An hour and a half into it, that last one, I had that proverbial epiphany breakthrough, and I don't want to say everything in my life was solved, but I had a light shine on all of the internal questions or issues that I had, and it constructed everything in a way that instantly I was not worried about the past anymore. I wasn't worried about the future. I was just currently present in the now, and I could see everything for what it was. And now I just had a breath and a sigh of relief to be like, now I can move on with my fucking life. I don't need to keep doing the same things that were horrible.
Yeah.
Um, and now 3 years later, a book later, a shit ton of podcasts later, multiple beautiful relationships later, here we are. So
Oh
now,
yeah.
it's fucked up, and I feel like I always get a references when I haven't seen people like, oh, how are you? I'm like, if there were 10 categories in life, 9 out of 10 of my categories are completely maxed out, 10 to the full. I have everything, absolutely. In my prior life, I had none of those things, but I had a shit ton of money. Right now, I'm working for 23 bucks an hour when I used to make, 1,000 bucks a day. Uh, I don't have the financial resources that I have, but I don't care. And not because I don't need financial, security, or that I don't need to get a better job in the future, but to be present, to be mindful, to be happy with where you're at, to go to bed with full of gratitude and peace of mind is priceless. And I would not trade that for anything. And
Yeah.
ultimately that's the story I'm trying to convey, which is because I see a lot of people, unfortunately, doing a shitload of prescription pills, drinking every day, masking their shit, walking around like zombies, and I was that guy, and now I'm the guy that walks around, hugging babies and petting puppies and making people laugh, and it's a way better way to live.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to sound cliche, but it has to be said. And we can see this in some of the billionaires in the world that are a lot more public about their lives, and they're fucking miserable. And then also, I know, I mean, just people that I know personally who are extraordinarily successful in business, and they're just a ball of stress. They're gonna have a heart attack any fucking day now. Like a bunch of guys I know, guys my age, like and I'm just like,
Yeah.
dude, like your blood pressure must be like, and you're not happy, like you can't buy enough shit to make yourself like whatever it is you're running from, whatever it is that's motivating you to be this much of a workaholic. There's no amount of like just shit and things you can buy that's gonna ever change whatever is inside you. I don't know. Just I know it's cliche. I know it's been said a million times, but I felt like you kind of really just put that in my mind again.
Well, and for somebody that's experienced both, it's easy for somebody that's never had money to be like, oh, it must be great when you have it, or vice versa. Somebody that's always been rich and never had to struggle. Well, I've owned 15 houses in my life, but then I was fucking homeless, living on the streets, living, walking around with people that smelled like piss, and
Yeah.
literally walking around hungry. And it's kind of like, holy shit, to see both sides of it. Now, I think in anything in life, you have to have a balance. So it's not money is evil or alcohol is evil. Um, I think money can buy you freedom, and with that freedom, what you do with it is really important. Now, if you're using that for the greater good, um, money can be great. If you're doing it just to try to put on a different suit for society to see, it can just be this self-destructing path. So, it's not money's the root of all evil, and money won't make you happy. It's if you have it, use it properly, but put it into context. I know, and it's a beautiful way to live. Everything come across, a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a soft blanket, the smell of flowers, literally every experience that I go through in life, I appreciate it. Where before it was just going through life with blinders. Can I make 5 grand this week? Can I make 6 grand this week? Where are we gonna go? Or we need this or that, and it just becomes all consuming. Where now my days are consumed with my inner growth, my inner enrichment, my inner stuff, my inner seeking. And this is actually what I wanted to talk about too, where a lot of people are caught up in seeking something, um, whether it be a new job, a new wife, a new position, and I think if you can get to the point where you're seeking just to be alive, to seek experience, every day can be amazingly fulfilled and wonderful, and everything kind of just falls into place if you're approaching life like that.
Yeah. Man, I want to share one more anecdote, and then I promise I'll stop because I know we're here to talk about the
Oh no,
book and
no,
the
this is a
DMT.
conversation.
But it's just
Well,
it's making me think about this. There's this guy I worked for, and you know what? Nice guy, and you know, I was just a contractor for him. You know, I wasn't like a real employee, but you know, he paid me well, he treated me good, and I enjoyed his company. But the thing about him was, and he was a self-made dude. He really he came from like jack shit and then made himself into a millionaire. You know, it owned his own construction company. And so like, you know, guys like me would just come, you know, come through. It just you know, I had a skill and you know, he used me for that. But you know, I was like, oh, this it must be so cool, like, you know, what you got. But the longer I got to know him and realize what his life was, talk about a guy that needed a hit of DMT. He took it, he had a family, took his family on vacation and couldn't stand it. He being away from his office and being away from his desk drove him so insane. He was supposed to be on vacation for like, and it was like a week, like some bullshit at the beach. He came back, he flew back, he left his family and flew back like after 2 days. And he's like, I couldn't, I was too worried you guys were all gonna fuck everything up while I was gone. So this guy was just shackled to his desk, counting money all day. And it just, you know, he
it's
had
horrible. It's
nice
horrible.
clothes, cool ass car. I never saw his house. I'm sure it was nice too, but like I was like, this guy, and at that time I was actually pretty broke. And I was like, I am so much happier than you
Mm.
being one of your underlings. And so I mean,
And you see it, and you can feel it around people. Now, like
yeah,
this past Wednesday, I went for a walk in the woods, got a smoothie, was walking by the river, the sun was coming through, I was peeing in trees. Like, man, what a great way to live. Now, did I make the $5,000? Nope. But like
yeah,
to your point, that other person can't even be there, and so imagine the people around him to have that distant person who's just disassociated and not there. Um, And I can share countless stories, but one maybe relative to this point, one of the guys that when I first started getting into this and we were kind of going through similar stuff, he basically was running from, doing all his work, doing all his shit. Not He had a beautiful wife, two beautiful daughters, and he wasn't appreciating any of them. And
Yeah.
through a couple hits of DMT, really realized what he had at home, and because of that, started having open communications with his wife, started being present at his daughter's basketball game. So now, he's literally hearing every squeak of the sneakers. He's listening to the tick of the clock. He's enjoying the sights and the sounds, as opposed to being, oh fuck, I gotta cut another cord of wood, or I've got this other project. And uh, once again, and similar to me, but in a subjective way, to be present now. You're not worried about past or present. You're just there. You're there for the experience. You're there. And then it's almost like this automatic flow state where you're just appreciating the synchronicities in life. People are just coming into your life when they should be. The doors are opening and basically being put in front of you as they should. Doors are closing as they should. Um, and living just becomes an easy human experience, and not with bullshit. Not, I mean, right now I have more stuff I need to work out of, and a lot of stuff. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but if you can actually just be comfortable having your consciousness in your own human body and not trying to put it somewhere else or be somebody else, and then you can just be, and just being is beautiful. It's wonderful. It's
Yeah. It's
it's like I
how,
get goosebumps all day because I'm just
yeah.
happy.
That's how we're meant to be. I catch myself, you talking about your friend saying, watching his daughter's basketball game, and my kid's real young, but I catch myself, he's doing something, he's learning something new, and I catch myself looking at my phone, like I'm pulling out my fucking phone, and I'll realize I did it, and I'm like, and
Mm.
I just want to I just want to smash the phone and throw it in the trash. Be like, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm missing out on like the most important thing in the world. You know, Here's my kid's learning how to walk. He's learning how to talk. And I'm like, telephone. I mean,
Yeah, but
but
the fact that you just mentioned that, and that you're pointing it out, and now you just told the world that
yeah,
you're 9/10 out of the way there, because you're actually conscious of what you're doing. And
yeah,
but to your to that beautiful point, and I looking at your Instagram, I believe I see the little son that you're talking about, and he's absolutely beautiful.
thank,
Perfect.
thank you.
Um, so that the pitch of his laughter is going to change very rapidly. The size, the smell, the color of his hair, like all of that is going to be changing so quickly. So why not just, yeah, enjoy every fucking second of it.
Yeah,
And you see the moms and dads that do that, and they're just so wrapped up and entwined in their kids. And raising a kid is, and I don't have children, but I can sure attest it's not easy. But if you're doing it joyfully, contentfully, um, with experiencing that with a little piece of your soul, it can be an awesome experience. As opposed to, once again, the moms and dads that are on 6, 7, 8, 9 pills. They're drinking 3, 4 bottles of wine every night, and they're
yeah,
just in zombie mode. So bring the kids to softball, bring the sons to karate. We're gonna do this. We're gonna dance, ballet. It's like, what the fuck you doing? You you're just responding and reacting, as opposed to following your intuition and gut. And sometimes that means being quiet and slow and not whatever.
yeah.
Like
Hell yeah, man.
taking the
Yeah,
time for a Saturday podcast. I could be working today, and I'm not stressed out that I'm not working. I'm very happy with what I'm doing, because this is exactly where I need to be. And what I'm doing in an hour from now, or 2 or 3, it's all the same. And you don't run around all fucking tense.
yeah,
And
man. It's interesting too, because like there's so much synchronicity because I don't know. I mean, like here, like we're on psychedelic scene, and I don't know if I'm the guest host or if I'm going to be the host of this or whatever. But you and I were already connected on Instagram through my
right.
other podcast. So I
Hmm.
mean, that's just there's like so much. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I just stuff like that always catches me off. I'm like, oh, this is crazy, Because
And it
when
keeps growing
yeah,
exponentially. And where we all going to be in 5, 10, 20 years. And
yeah.
that's the cool part.
When the editor of Psychedelic Scene asked me to do this, and then he told me that you were the guest, I was like, I know who that is. I follow him on Instagram.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but yo, shit, man, I want to talk about a chapter in your book, and actually, just I mean, this might be just a little bit of semantics. I'm not sure, but I also just want to know. It's going also back to the beginning when I asked you what is DMT, and you have a chapter. I believe you call it the miracle molecule. Is that correct? Uh,
Mhm.
I've also heard it called like the God molecule. Uh, what what gives DMT this name?
So probably the most common name is spirit molecule, and that was Rick Strassman. He did research from, I believe, 1990 to 95 with long-term extensive volunteers that were going into the DMT space. And he approached it not only from a scientific standpoint, but because of his background in like Eastern philosophies and spiritualism and stuff like that, he kind of gave his volunteers the ability and freedom to really feel comfortable sharing their full experiences. Through listening to his volunteers coming out of it, uh, their experience of things being more real than real, that coming out of it, finding God, seeing God, and whether you're an atheist or not, like connecting with something more powerful. So he coined the term spirit molecule, and when I read that book, I I instantly kind of saw how we could phrase that, and I've said it to myself multiple times, like, oh, that this really is the spirit molecule. You not only draw out your own inner spirit, but you connect with just this collective source of spirits as well. um but I said the word molecule because it wasn't that I was trying to like overdo him, or well, my coin phrase is more important than his. It was that they're equally applicable. And then I say in my book too that there's hundreds of other ones, the adjectives that could possibly explain it. But every time I kept coming out, I just kept saying this is a fucking miracle, like this is a miracle. And for
Yeah.
somebody that's academically trained. I went to college for almost 8 years as an entomologist. So like I'm comfortable collecting data. I've read thousands and thousands of books on all sorts of weird shit. So like my mind can it's used to processing complex information and putting it where it needs to be. But there was just nothing like DMT. And it wasn't like, oh, after the 10th time you get comfortable, or the 100th time, or it's just every time it was like, this really is a fucking miracle. And every time you think it like, oh, that's it, that's what it can show me, something else happened. Um, so that was kind of just really a way to give credit to Rick Strassman for he's really, I think, probably one of the most fundamental people in the DMT space, to be able to say spirit molecule without using his title, but then also to kind of say, listen, it's way more than that. um
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
a life-saving molecule. It's whatever, the God molecule, all of those things are applicable for sure.
That leads me definitely into my next question, because I think a lot of people, especially people I know, are familiar with mushrooms. Like I said, it's a lot more prevalent. They're a lot easier to get. They're legal in a lot of states now. There's a lot more medical research being, there's it's just kind of like a more common thing, I guess. Um,
Definitely easy to come by nowadays.
easy to come by, and like we said in the beginning, you're like, all right, well, look, even if it gets scary, 5 hours, it's over, and you might go, whoo, that was scary, but I mean, I'm fine. Like, you know, I guess. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there have been horrific stories. I'm not going to get into that horseshit. My question is, for anyone that's considering a DMT trip, and so this is a big decision. Like as you said, this is not just, this is not a party drug. This is not, you're not taking a hit of ecstasy or eating a Xanax, or, like you said, this
Yeah,
could
you
be,
better have a place to sit down
yeah,
or lay down for
yeah,
sure.
this could be ultimately life changing. Yeah, don't do it at work, maybe depending on what your job is. I don't know. But for someone who is considering a DMT trip, what should they expect, and how could they prepare for it, or should they prepare for it?
So I guess the first question would be, and this is where I'm comfortable speaking the truth because I really feel like I have nothing to hide, but also everybody needs to once again be cautious on what they do. It'd be really, how do you come across it? How do you get it? And that's where I thought it was important too, to let people know, um, with the recipes, that you can make this pretty easily at home. You don't need some complex chemistry set. It's relatively straightforward extraction process, and the products you can buy legally in the U.S. So that there's several companies online that you can shop, and it says right on it, shipped to the U.S. or not. And there's dozens of them. My understanding is there's thousands of plants, including mammals. And that's something actually I want to talk about, is the endogenous factor of DMT. So the fact that it is produced in your own body, that's a really important part.
Yeah,
Um, but there's several plants that have high enough concentrations that you can't extract it. So basically, you can just buy the plant. So the two common forms are either a mulch or a bark or a shredded bark of Mimosa hostilis, or there's a couple different plants that come in leaf form that also have enough DMT. So um, No, you can buy the product, set aside a day, once again with the right intention, the right kind of energy, make it something, you're really imbuing your love and emotion into this product. But that way you're not dealing with some shady drug dealer. You're not going on the street looking for it. It's something that you can produce easily in your own house for literally a couple $100. Material would probably last a lifetime worth of product.
Yeah.
Uh, and then there's recipes too of making either ayahuasca or DMT. So, well, just the straight DMT crystals. And we've been talking primarily about smoking it. So one of the recipes is an extraction process where you get pure, basically free base DMT crystal form, and you can put it in, a specialized pipe, or you put it on top of a bowl of weed, and you inhale it like that. And that's where you're getting the 7 minute blast off, and holy shit. The other recipe is for, I say ayahuasca as well as DMT brew. Because ayahuasca technically is just two ingredients, and that's a liquid form of DMT, but you need another ingredient added to it in order for your body not to metabolize it so quickly. So that's where that second ingredient comes in. But you can make traditional ayahuasca, which is just two plants, or you can use a bunch of other ingredients to kind of make what I said, a DMT brew. So as long as it has an MAOI inhibitor, which is basically just allows, like I said, the DMT to stay in your body instead of being quickly absorbed. That ayahuasca that can last 6, 7, 8, 10 hours. I mean, that's where you're hearing people shitting and puking themselves and
Yeah.
purging themselves, and then sometimes they drink it and nothing happens. Then the next day they drink the exact same amount, and Mother Ayahuasca shows herself, and it's and
Yeah.
they're both completely different. Now, I've done ayahuasca maybe 20 times, 15, 20 times, where the smoking I've done way more. But they both, once again, they both have their place. They both expose different energies, different vibrations, um, different intentions, different information. Um,
Yeah.
but both the ayahuasca and brew is literally can be made in an hour or two. It's like brewing coffee or brewing tea, and in a half hour and $50 worth of material, you can have one of the strongest
That's
psychedelic brews right there that
that's
you made, that you've sauced, there's no shady shit, there's no,
that's so interesting to me because and to no offense, and I actually I have friends that have gone to South America and sought out like an actual you know very legit shaman, done ayahuasca. There's and it seems like it seems very cool, but it also has a bit of a stigma right now. I feel like because it's become something that's it's gotten very popular with like certain types of celebrities, certain types of people in the tech community, a lot of people in Silicon Valley, and it's kind of like what you're saying with intentions. I think a lot of people are like, I want to be a more productive, tech guy. I want to I want more profits this quarter. I'm going to go to South America and take ayahuasca to make myself, figure out how I'm going to the next, bullshit thing I'm going to do at work. So or hey,
well,
maybe that's not a bad intention. It's to me it seems a little bit strange to do something spiritual in order to increase productivity at work. But anyway, I just think that's fascinating that you could just do this at home. You don't actually have to you don't have to seek out a shaman and hike into the jungle.
and I think this is also a subjective thing too, where like a big scene now is not only these shamanic centers, but like trip setters and trip sitters, and clinics where you can go in and do a session. I have never experienced that, so I don't know if it's for me or not. And I think it's probably analogous to going to the gym. Some people love or love going alone, and like myself, it's my meditation time. I like to be quiet. I don't talk to anybody. If I have a question about the machines, I learn it, and I figure it out. There are other people that won't go unless they have a trainer, or they only want to go and take the classes where they have a teacher up front and 10 other people around them. It's not right or wrong or good or bad or one's better or worse or anything like that. It's really, I think, just
Yeah,
what's your preference. My idea of being out in a mosquito infested, hot, sweaty fucking forest where I don't have my own clean toilet, where I can't take a shower after I take a shit, where I don't have my girlfriend to lay in bed with, um, that would be the last place, in my opinion, that I'd want to be bugging out tripping.
yeah. For
But
10 for 10 for 10
like,
for 10 hours because you're not even
yeah,
talking about
but
smoking.
three
You're talking
days or 7 days in a
yeah.
country where you don't have the same rights, and fuck that, man. Like
That,
I'm
that does
good.
sound a little bit scary now that you mentioned that. Yeah, going back to
But
the gym thing, man, I'm I like both. If I'm lifting weights, I do like to do that with like just one homie or by myself. Uh, but I also like to go to I like the classes, man, because it's like you get that energy, and sometimes I'll work out way harder because I'm competitive. So if I'm around other people, like in a kickboxing class, I'm like, I could do this harder than any of you guys.
well, with that, so there is a beauty of having somebody there to hold your space with you. So you can push your boundaries. So you can spot to go push your max to keep with the gym analogy.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where in my book I have a chapter by Alicia. So she wrote Alicia's angle, and I thought it important to add a female's perspective. So a mother, occupational therapist, somebody that's been through her own trauma, um, and her and I use DMT together to basically have a spiritual understanding of not only ourselves, but we increase our relationship as well. But there's a couple of things we can kind of go off of. You mentioned um, using these tech guys using the spiritual awakening to be more productive. I do have a chapter in the book about transcendental sex, art, and science, and with a subtitle. But I bring that up because DMT and psychedelics in general really does allow a different way of thinking, a different way for your brain to process information, or whether it's new synapses firing or being created. Um, but I talk about how the artist can create more beautiful pieces of art. You think about like Alex Gray, or for the engineer to come up with a problem that they've been working on for a year and they don't know how to think about it. Well, if you're thinking about it just from our normal states of consciousness with Newtonian physics and with the materials you have at hand, yeah, you're not going to solve it. Once you get into that space where everything's possible and you're looking at things from other areas or other perspectives, it can really come in. Um, I talk about transcendental sex, so sharing that space with another person who you're intimate with, that mending of energy, like holy shit, with the right person, that's also a very mind-blowing and grounding experience that only helps you communicate better with yourself, with your partner, and I think that translates into every other interaction. Because you can't, and this is a point that I bring up often too, but the power of psychedelics is it really holds up a mirror to yourself where you can't bullshit and lie. So you can lie to your friend, you can lie to your spouse. I used to pay a high-end therapist $240 an hour, and I don't want to say I lied to him, but I was there to kind of manipulate the story to kind of make him think I was some sort of something. Where in psychedelics, you cannot lie to yourself, you cannot bullshit yourself, and you instantly get that smirk smacked off your face if you think you're gonna go in there and fool yourself. And that's really what I needed. I was like, well, yeah, you're 40 pounds overweight because you're a fucking idiot drunk. Well, you're losing these relationships because you're a narcissistic asshole. You're, and it just and I don't. I used to beat up myself for a while. Now I just really put it in the proper context of how never to live again.
Man, so you just in a row hit a series of things that I wanted to point out and ask a question on. So I'm going to try and keep it straight in my head. I'm going to go
Yeah.
first to therapist. And this is not uncommon. People going to a therapist and just lying to the therapist. And you went there for help, but sometimes there's this it could be I guess this subconscious urge to be like, I want this therapist to think that I'm already good. And it's like, why are
Well,
you? And it's
in my sense, I wanted, so he was this older brown professor who really interesting guy, and genuinely was there to help me and could help me.
yeah,
And like I said, not that I was trying to manipulate him, but I was trying to fabricate the story of how I was some advanced intellectual, and I was just so complex, and the way my brain worked was so different from everybody else's, and kind of like woe is me, pity me, because you know my brain is just so whatever. And it's just like, no, you stupid fuck, like, because I could create a fancy narrative to paint this wonderful picture of how I don't fit into the world, but the truth is, it's like no, because I'm drinking a fucking six pack on the way home, and I'm hiding it, and I'm lying, and I'm looking at myself when I'm brushing my teeth at night and I can't even look myself in the eye. That's the problem. And
yeah,
as soon as you stop running from that, um, but therapy and people that like all of my friends, I consider my therapist. My mom and dad, I consider my therapist.
yeah. No
Talking
doubt.
and
Yeah,
sharing can certainly help, but you have to know why you're asking those questions and why what answers you're kind of giving. I mean, perfect example with me quitting alcohol. I can't tell you how many times people said you should quit, you need to quit. How many women said if you don't quit, I'm going to leave you. I, until I actually decided that day in an instant, I'm never going to touch a drop of alcohol again. And it was such an easy decision. I have no urge to go back, and I know I never will, because it's that consciousness shift. But you can have that consciousness shift in everything, and every little aspect of your life. Um, but you don't. I also want to make a point too, saying that psychedelics aren't for everybody. So if somebody's listening to this and being like, "Yeah, interesting story," but I can't do DMT or shrooms for an assortment of reasons, and that very well may be valid reasons.
Yeah.
You can get to that space, in my opinion, through meditation, through prayer, through breathing, through lucid dreaming, through a long walk in the woods. You know, that there are ways of getting your vibrational energy and your heart to be in a coherent kind of state where you do um, have almost a psychedelic state. I was on a podcast well, maybe a month and a half ago, where the guy said meditation's his favorite psychedelic, and I love that because I agree. I meditate way more than I do DMT, and I'm almost every time I'm in this tripped out state
Yeah,
because you
actually,
tune in.
it's funny you brought up lucid dreaming. I trained myself to lucid dream. Did it for a long time. I deliberately stopped because it was I was losing sleep because it would wake me up way too frequently. But just to your point though, like it was a really simple little trick, something you just do every single day, and within 2 weeks you'll be lucid dreaming practically every night. So I mean, a lot of these things, they're not even necessarily like super complex. Like you don't have to be a monk. It doesn't take years to achieve some of these kinds of states of enlightenment or altered states of consciousness, I guess I should say.
And perfect to talk about too. The altered states of consciousness, whether that be lucid dreaming, DMT, we're talking about meditative bliss, whether it be sexual ecstasy when you reach that level, those altered states of consciousness, I think now are getting not the credit they deserve. I think in the past, those types of stories had way more weight, where now science is finally, I think, that you can only have so many data points and so many stories of powerful interactions from altered states where they're real. Now, and I listened to the podcast that you did on your podcast where you were recounting a story, I believe, when you were dreaming and you woke up and you had like this entity sitting on your chest, but then when you woke up, like it was actually there too.
Oh, with Mike
Your camp
Ricksecker? Yeah.
with your camp. So like, so it's fucking freaky. Like I heard that, and it's like you
Oh,
get goosebumps
it
listening
was
to it.
horrifying. So yeah,
But
a paranormal investigator, and
yeah,
like I know to a lot of people they'll be like, okay, that's bullshit, but no,
it happened to you, right?
it was one of the most real. It seemed as real if it were to happen right now in the room, right now, right in front of you on camera, it wouldn't seem any more real now than it seemed when it happened then from that lucid dream experience. Is
But to
yeah.
that point, so it is real because the effects are real. Now, was
Yeah.
it an actual physical manifestation? Was it something that you could weigh or measure? Maybe not, or maybe with the tools we have, we can't. But to say that that experience didn't shape your life, or even the people's around you that was around, like they are these experiences, I think, are getting the weight that they deserve. And you were saying like as real as real. One of the common traits, and I think this is why I kept also saying miracle molecule and spirit molecule, is as humans we walk around with our standard five senses, and when you go into a DMT state, or especially DMT state, not only are your five senses completely turned up to a whole new level in sensitivity, where you're perceiving so many different things of sight, sound, color, taste, all of those. Excuse me. But you also have so many other senses and perceptions, and that's where I struggle. I don't know the name. I don't even know how to describe what you're taking in, but it is the ability to interact with or sense other beings or entities, whether they be good or evil, or dark or light, or um but you're and this is where the question of consciousness, once again, is it producing your brain and project it out, or is your brain kind of like a receiver, and you're kind of screening things? um But whatever is happening when you're quieting your brain and you're allowing more information to come in, uh, that's why I think people are saying it's more real than real. Because instead of having five senses with 100 data points, you have 25 senses with 1,000 data points, and you're getting so much more. So how can it not be real? How can you not an experience with that much more input is certainly going to have a lasting effect. Um,
Yeah.
and it helped. I mean, it from PTSD to from veterans to people that have lost loved ones that are using that psychedelics. It rewires the brain in a way that allows you to put shit in the right compartment.
Yeah. And I've also heard a lot too about uh it being used as a tool uh to use along with grief counseling. Um but actually I'm trying to I knew I was going to start losing my thread because you said about I don't know about 5 minutes ago you said like three or four things in a row, and I wanted to just do one quick tap on all of them. Real quick, one super. This is a superficial as fuck question, but you were just saying, you're like, I was miserable, I was drunk, I was 40 pounds overweight. You changed your life, did some DMT. Uh, I'm just curious because 40 pounds is a big weight drop. Is that just because you just cut out booze and you're outside more? I mean, it's like,
Yeah, so I'm 5'10", relatively small frame. I was 220 at my heaviest, and I'm like 175 now. And it was just when I think about looking at myself in the mirror, it was just this dark, heavy weight that manifested into just grossness. But I mean, I still went to the gym every day. I was still active. It wasn't like I was just sitting around watching TV. I just had all of my internal energy was just held in, and I think it just kept, yeah. But ultimately, and I would drink 10 to 12 beers a day, the double IPAs at whatever, 400 calories a piece time, so I was consuming so much just caloric intake and alcohol that
yeah,
even if I ate healthy, it didn't really matter. But
yeah. Yeah,
that,
I ain't gonna lie. I like beer, so that is one of those things. It's just so many calories. You gotta like, you really gotta
but
like find like a way, like yeah, like you said, a balance. You gotta be like, all right, be intentional. If you're like me, like someone like where I'm
but
like, I don't want to be 100% never have a beer again, but also at the same time, you know, uh,
no, like my buddy I work with, we do landscaping, and at the end of the day, we'll go out and sometimes we'll get a blue moon and a frosted mug on tap, and I look at that and I'm like, I can only and I know how refreshing and enjoying it is, and he enjoys the shit out of it. He may have two, but most likely he only has one. But that's it. He's enjoying a nice cold beverage where I
yeah,
would have three on the way to the restaurant, a six-pack wait for me when I got in the car. When I got home, I have three other shots, and then at night try to sneak another drink so my girl didn't see me. Like
yeah.
that's not enjoying beer. That's running from your shit.
Yeah, that's getting fucked up to that's trying to shut your brain off, man. You know?
But and some people ask, well, is it if you're saying that you're sober and you quit alcohol, but then you just turn to other drugs, quote unquote drugs, and it's like completely different. One enriches and one expands and completely allows you to interact with your environment on so many more deep, profound levels, and the other one is just muffles it and masks it and all the conversations are surface and have no depth to them. Where when you're doing psychedelics, you have no stomach for surface conversations. You almost can't have anything other than deep philosophical conversations because like the
Yeah.
intellectual curiosity is so wide on so many different areas. But how do you not like even right now? What do you want to talk about? We could talk for another 5 hours as far as deep shit.
I would also say that's a bad faith argument saying that using psychedelics, especially for the reasons you do, to be like, oh well, you quit drinking just because no, you're tripping. It's like
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. That's like
Well,
saying if someone quit drinking and then they were like with all the extra time they had, they became a painter. You're like,
yeah.
oh well, you just replaced it with painting. It's shut the fuck up. That's not a good argument. It's a bad argument. It's silly. And I
Well,
think that a lot of people that use that argument know that they're being cynical and they're kind of full of shit.
Well, it's a perfect time that when people start talking like that to whittle down your inner circle. So the people that are your surface friends, and not even that it's a negative interaction or that they're evil people, but some people want to wallow in their sorrow with others. So if you're not the guy playing cards or sitting at a bar with somebody anymore, and you lose that friendship, then so be it. But I've lost a lot of friends and family members that have looked at me to be like, oh, you used to be this, high earning real estate investor with multiple shit, oh, and now you're living in your parents' basement and you're doing fucking DMT, and it's just like, cool. Then if you don't understand that, and you would rather have me with all my fancy money and all my shit, and you'd rather have me know that I was suicidal and literally gonna end my fucking life. You'd rather have that, Adam, or the people that truly see my light shining now. And there's been some, aunts and uncles that I came out of the woodwork that I never thought would love and embrace me the way they have, or friends that have really stepped up to be like, "Oh shit, I've been through something similar, and thanks for sharing because now we can talk about it." So those, and it almost happens naturally.
Yeah.
The shitty people just drift off and fade away, and the people that are in path. And a great point then to say what psychedelics do is it allows you to be comfortable being your authentic self. I'm comfortable being in my weird, unique space that I would never think that I would be here right now, but I'm comfortable, and that comfort level conveys to other people. And whatever, if you don't like it, get the fuck out of my way. If you
Yeah.
do like it, we're gonna have an awesome time together.
I think sometimes people forget that we're mortal and that what a full life actually is. It's the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. It makes me think about it. A lot of the guys in that they're all on quaaludes and they're sniffing coke all day to like stay awake enough to like so the quaaludes don't put them out, and and they're making money hand over fist. They're the richest guys in the world, and they don't like and then, it all came crashing down. And like you got to think that a lot of the guys involved in that shit they don't even remember it. They don't even they didn't it's not even like it was like fond memories. They were just in a haze for 20 years, and then it was over and the ride was over,
We're
you
just
know.
the opposite with psychedelics. So both me and Alicia, we journal quite a bit when we come out of it, and we always talk and share about our experiences. And it's never just, oh yeah, that was mediocre, or that there wasn't much in it. We normally come out crying, full of tears, being like, oh my fucking god, like listen to this. It's uh, it's great to experience that. I feel like we're at such a lucky point of being humans, where we have access to information and we have science now that's kind of backing some of the stuff that we knew thousands of years ago, and we can it's now we have the choice to change our consciousness and perception of what it means to be a human. And uh I think there's, and not like this psychedelic movement, or there's this huge shift happening, but I think that there is this kind of momentum building that humans in general need to figure out something, and it's not the normal path of self-destruction that a society's been on for a long, long time. And I was unfortunate. I was a part of that. I was that dark, nasty fucking force that would go in and destroy. Um, where now you can be that creative light that mends and brings life. If everybody had that mindset, it would just be a way better place to live.
Oh yeah, man. Well, Adam, I have one more question to ask you. It's the most important question of the day, and it is: where can people find you, follow you, and uh read your book?
So I'm pretty easily accessible. My Instagram is probably my most active social media account. Books by Adam Butler. As far as getting the book, it's available anywhere where book you can find books. So Amazon's probably the easiest, but Walmart, BarnesandNoble.com. If you're in the New England area, it's at a couple cool Newberry comic stores around here, which is a pretty cool shop. Um, as you mentioned, I put out my audiobook a couple months ago, so it's on Audible. And my email's out there. If anybody, and it's not about selling books. It's not about trying to become a famous author or anything like that. It really is sharing the message. And if I can help one person just kind of see their life in a better, easier way. So, if anybody needs a free copy, I can send a PDF copy like I did with you. I've got promo codes too. So, um, if
Oh yeah.
money's an obstacle, I can still get you my book. And really, it's just help spread the message. That would be and as we end, if we're going to end the podcast, maybe end it in the same way that I ended my book with the chapter of love thy neighbor. And I never thought, with all the crazy shit that caused me to write that book, and the hatred of myself and the hatred of humanity and society, that I would end it talking about love and connection and loving thy neighbor. And it's huge. If you lean towards love, connection, understanding, openness, empathy, sympathy with yourself, and then expand that to other people, it's a very comfortable and enriching way of life. And you never know when you're going to need that shoulder to lean on. So it's always good to try to be that shoulder for people to lean on, because at some point that's going to shift. So um,
Yeah.
right now I have some strength to share, and if anybody needs some, I can. And who knows? when I may need it from other people again. But hopefully
Yeah,
my story and words can help.
I'm not extremely religious, but there's a phrase I heard recently, and it's not new to me, but like there's a lot of homeless people around my house and stuff. I feel terrible for all of them or whatever. And somebody that I was with said, there but for the grace of God go I or whatever. And basically the meaning of that is like that could be you, you know,
Instantly.
and
With a
it could
knock on the
be
door. Truly, a knock on the fucking
yeah.
door.
One thing could happen and that could be you. You could be the guy that's sleeping on the sidewalk and doesn't have any food and it's just
Hmm.
it sucks and I don't know, man. Like that really struck me, and I feel like I felt like it kind of fit with what you just said. It just really popped in my head there pretty hard.
And if you
Is
feel that, and if you walk by that person and you get that twinge in your stomach, and so that's gonna allow you to, hey, buddy, do you need a sandwich? And you're wearing a coat, but you get 10 more at home. Give the guy your coat. And it's those simple acts of humanness that
yeah,
then, you know, I said to one stranger, I said just in passing, I love you, brother. And he perked. He goes, basically when he goes, I don't know when the last time somebody even addressed me and talked to me like a human, but he goes, I don't, pretty much no one's ever said they love me. And it was just uh, how easy is it to have somebody's day light up by having, especially some gnarly looking fucking stranger like me walk by and say they love you? It's not like, some hot chick telling them, but it was just a human to human connection to be like, no, you're you're a like soul, and that doesn't mean there aren't some evil people that need to repent, or that not everybody is good, and maybe there are some pieces of shit that need to fester, but
yeah.
majority I think just need a helping hand. And man, I know I couldn't do it alone, and if I was alone, I certainly wouldn't be here. So, be that person for somebody else, and it'll come back tenfold.
Well, yeah, man. I feel like there are some rabbit holes we could have explored. Maybe this summer, you can come on my views are my own, and we could do another one of these. I don't know if you'd be interested in that at all.
No, I'd love to, and I'm
Uh,
still in my kind of travel nomad shit, so I'm still always trying to travel and go around. I know you're in Tennessee, right?
yeah, I'm in
So
Nashville.
whatever, even stop by, we'll have a fried chicken sandwich or something.
Hell yeah, man. Where?
But
Oh,
yeah, no, I'm around.
I should plug myself real quick too. That's what.
Please do. Yeah, no. So yeah, you have an awesome content and some really cool guests. And once again, just exposure to different perspectives
so yeah,
is helpful to people.
yeah, this is the psychedelic scene podcast. But if you're interested in another podcast, I urge you to check out My Views Are My Own, available streaming on all platforms. You can contact me at myviewsaremyown.com or on Instagram at my views are my own underscore podcast or on Twitter at my views underscore podcast. And that's about it. Hey, thanks for letting me plug my own shit at the end of your interview, man.
No, this is how the world works. I'm excited. I'm excited where this goes. And
All right,
I'm here if you need anything. We'll definitely stay connected.
Adam, it was an absolute pleasure meeting you, man.
You as well, Doug. Thank you.